Life Over Coffee. Conversations for transformation.
Every day you have to make many decisions, big decisions, small decisions. Some of them are life-changing events while others aren't so consequential. It would probably shock many of us to realize how often we decide things. From micro decisions, those subtle, silent decisions we make every few minutes, every few hours throughout our day, to life and family altering decisions. Having a good grasp of biblical decision making is absolutely vital. I have a decision making case study that I want to share with you. And I want to give you a few practical tips that I trust will serve you in all the decisions that you have made. So I want to share this case study with you. And then I just want to talk about some practical ways about making decisions, good and bad ideas. The case study is about two people getting married, but again, you can apply this to any decision that you're trying to decide. So I'm going to bring my friends Biff and Mabel here. They're in love. They've been talking about getting married for a while. They love God. They have been pure in their relationship. They want to honor their parents. They met in college, but they have waited until both have secured good jobs and paid off most of their college debt. Yay, yay, and yay. These are good things. They've known each other for 5 years. They've dated for the past 18 months, and they come to you for counsel. And while they are confident that they will marry, and both sets of parents are okay with the idea, they want your thoughts about a potential engagement and future union. Now, you have a whole list of questions that you want to ask them, as you should, as is right. But there is one that is more critical than all the rest. And so my question to you is, what is that question that you want to ask them? And why is that question more crucial than all the others? Now, I have talked about this before in books and many podcasts and articles. Those of you who are familiar with our content, you already know the answer, what the answer is. And so I want to add another aspect to that. What is the most important question you will ask them? But then I want to ask, how do you make that practical? And so this case study will explore your understanding of decision making while giving you a few practical guidelines for making decisions. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with our content, let me go ahead and tell you what the most important question is that you'll ever ask anybody who's making a decision, whether it's Biff and Mabel here who want to get married, or any other decision. The most critical decision that you want to ask Biff and Mabel is, are you in faith to get married? Or stated another way, do you have a word from the Lord that you're supposed to marry this person? Or stated another way, do you believe this is God's will for your life? All three of my questions are similar, and they cause you to explore whether or not you're walking in faith as you embark on whatever it is that you hope to do. In this case, we're talking about marriage. It doesn't matter exactly how you ask the in faith question, as long as you do ask that question and explain why you're asking it. When it comes to biblical decision making, there is no more important question. Now, granted, in this case study, it will hardly matter to Biff and Mabel. In nearly all cases where folks are in love, it doesn't matter what you say to them because they already know it's God's will. They're on that right path. Whether they are or not, that's another question, but they know they are because they're in love. They will answer your questions in the affirmative. Most couples in love are so enamored with one another that all objectivity is out the window. Nevertheless, it would be best if you had a conversation with them about the faith factor. Because what you know is that there will come a day when they will wonder why they married each other. Now again, for those of you who are unfamiliar with our material, I'll give you Romans 14:23, where Paul says, but whoever has doubts is condemned if he eats. Meaning your starting point is doubt, and you proceed from doubt. You're condemned if you eat. You cannot proceed from doubt because the eating is not from faith. Second sentence in 14:23. For whatever does not proceed from faith is sin. So when Paul talked about making decisions, he connected whatever we decide to our being in faith. His language was strong and clear. He says that if we did not make our decisions from faith, proceeding from faith, we will be sinning. A modern paraphrase of Paul's verse could be, when in doubt, don't. Paul says that it is a sin to proceed into any situation if we cannot move forward knowing that we are doing the right thing. Biff and Mabel must trust God as it pertains to their future and potential marriage. They must believe that marriage is God's will for them. They must be in faith. Of course, some people will ask, why do you say that this is the most critical question? And I would encourage you to check out our material at Life Over Coffee about decision making. And I'm very thorough in this, and you'll find a lot of information about why the in faith question is important. Some will say, does this mean that I can't doubt at all? I can't proceed from that. I can't doubt at all. I must have perfect faith before I can make a decision. Some will say, if I married this person, but now I realize that it was not in faith when we were married, and now our marriage stinks. What am I to do? How can I know God's will? Can you give me details on how to make decisions in faith? All right, so there is the case study, being in faith, and of course that does raise questions. And so now for the remainder of this, I want to give you a few practical guidelines in no particular order, and I'll just start with this. There are no perfect decisions. Some people can be so measured, so calculating, and fearful that they cannot decide anything until all fear, all doubt, all worry are gone. It's not going to happen. So, on the big decisions. Sometimes these people are self-righteous, for example. They want to look good in front of others. Failure is not an option for them. And so rather than pushing forward, they make excuses and wait. Some people don't do anything because if I can't do it perfectly, I'm not going to do it. Caution is wise, but paralysis is not. There aren't any perfect, significant decisions where you will be 100% sure without any reservations that you've done the right thing. Faith does not work that way in fallen individuals. I mean, the only way that it can really work that way is that if you had all the answers, I know exactly how this is going to turn out. Well, if you had all the answers before you move forward, then you would not be operating in faith, not faith in God. You'd be operating in a faith in the known outcome. You would be moving forward because you know how this thing's going to end. And of course, that's not trusting the Lord at all. That's a self-reliant decision-making model. And so there are no perfect decisions. The second practical application is, well, the opposite of that is impulsiveness. The other side of paralysis is the self-sufficient person who devalues community and the other means of grace God has given to help guide him. Close friends or wise counselors should influence the major decisions that matter. A humble person always carries a sense of self-deception, not in a morbid, introspective way and always Eeyore-ish, under the cloud, negative, not like that, but just a humble awareness of our fallenness. There should be a biblical self-suspicion. However, rather than an awareness leading to paralysis, he doesn't go that far, it motivates them to borrow brains. They want to gain the perspective of others so that they can do proper due diligence. The gospel-centered person has nothing to fear, hide, or protect. He's humble, open to correction, willing to seek the wisdom of other like-minded individuals. Practical application number 3, asking true friends. The modifier there, true friends. There may be a temptation to ask only those who agree with you or those who do not have the grace to disagree with you. A true friend will tell you what you might not want to hear. Proverbs 27:6, faithful are the wounds of a friend, profuse are the kisses of an enemy. Proverbs is an excellent verse to practicalize in this manner. Don't surround yourself with yes people. What good is that? Living in an echo chamber with folks who are not willing to disagree with you is not how you sharpen your iron. Number 4 is guard against being offended. That is an important tip that you want to embrace. It is a definite sign of Christian maturity to receive correction with grace. Too often the focus is on how the correction came rather than the truth that the person shared. Perhaps they were 90% wrong in delivery and 10% correct with the truth. There's truth embedded in there somewhere. For the need to make the right decision, the most vital thing at this point is to hear the truth proclaimed. Perhaps you could talk about the delivery later. It's easy to focus so much on the desire to be right, and we miss God's corrective care through imperfect people who bring their perspectives. Thus, guard against being offended while opening yourself up to another view. Number 5, proclaiming but not asking for help. Now, what I mean by this is that there have been a few times in my life, particularly when pastoring, when someone has come to me and they told me, they proclaimed what they planned to do. And then they asked what I thought about what they had already decided. Let me give you a few scenarios of this. Hey, Rick, we just put our house on the market. We're moving to Vermont. What do you think? I just gave my boss a 2-week notice. Is that a good idea? Yesterday, I borrowed $1,000 for our family vacation. Do you think that's wise? Please don't do this to your friends, because you'll put them in an awkward position. Most of the time, particularly if I don't know them well, I will not tell them what I think. I mean, they've already decided, and my perspective won't make any difference anyway. They are telling me what they have done rather than asking my opinion on the decision. I'm not suggesting that they have to ask me before they do anything. They should ask someone. But if the person that they should ask, they go to and say, we've already made the decision, what do you think? Post-decision, don't do that to your friends. Practical application number 6, remember the V. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about this. The letter V as in victory. I use the illustration of a V when making this point. The letter V is narrow at the bottom. That's our starting point. And it's broad at the top. This is huge to really capture this idea. The illustration means you have defined your starting point, but there are many possible ending points. And in decision making, we want to be careful. We start in faith, and we're hoping that this is the end result, but sometimes the end result will lead us over here. We started this ministry in faith. It was going to be a counseling ministry until I meet Jesus. We stopped counseling in 2015, and we have been doing all sorts of things since then. It's continuing to move. We were in faith to start. We made our plans, but God determined our steps. We have to remember the V. We want to hold our ideas loosely. We can begin in faith, but you can expect adjustments all along the way. However, if you flip the V upside down, where there is a predetermined ending at that point at the top because the V is upside down, then there are no possible outcomes but one. This is what I'm going to do. This is how it's going to end. If it doesn't end that way, I'm going to be unhappy. I've seen many people flip the V upside down, and through hell or high water, they're going to get to their predetermined destination, no matter what. And it did not matter what others thought about their decision or what God may or may not want. For example, a young man wants to go into ministry, but he's not qualified to do so. After careful evaluation from several individuals, they concur that he does not have the gift mix for what he wants to do. Still, the preacher wannabe has already determined the outcome. He is going to be a preacher. He has his V upside down, and this is what I'm going to do. I see that within the counseling ministry. A wannabe biblical counselor will make this mistake. They have a desire, a good desire to be a counselor, and they conjure up a false continuum formula in their minds. The false continuum formula is a burden equals a calling. And so there can only be one outcome. I have a burden, therefore I am called. That's not always true. Many times these people are driven more by selfish ambition or maybe immaturity than an actual call from God, the subjective call from God. The big idea here is to hold our narrative loosely. There could be broader possibilities for God's plans for our lives. We should say, as James said in 4:13-17, if the Lord wills, I can do this or that. Remember the V right side up. If you predetermine how your decision should turn out, you may live in perpetual disappointment. However, suffering could be God's will for your life. God told Elijah to do many things, and you just follow his story. There are several times when he got to the end, it's like, wow, the river has dried up. The widow's ready to die. this thing is not going as I thought it would be. There are many instances in Scripture where someone made a decision and the outcome was dismal, despairing, and deathly. Maybe that is how God is guiding us. I mean, read Hebrews 11. It's not out of the realm of possibilities for the Lord to permit choices that lead to undesirable results for us. But what God is doing is a greater work that we did not perceive at the time. And then number 7, you can change your mind. Decision making is an imperfect science because we are fallen individuals. There are times when you make a decision and then realize that it was not the best idea, so you change your mind and possibly the direction of your life. It is best to make these decisions in the context of canon, comforter, community, and conscience. Bible, Spirit, friends, and what you believe in your heart of hearts, your inner voice. Perhaps your decision led you into a hardship, and that is supposed to be your lot in life, like many, as we see in the Bible, characters and also many people that we know. Alternatively, it led you into difficulty, and you should change your plans. Each situation is unique, and so it requires our utmost patience, wisdom, humility, careful assessment before you change your mind or your life trajectory. It's not wrong to change your plans, but you want to make sure that you have weighed what you're thinking carefully using the means of grace provided by God, canon, comforter, community, and conscience. Ultimately, you must be in faith to make or to change your decision. The biggest pitfall of all of us is having faith in what we're about to do. Usually it's other things that are at the top of the list. We don't have faith. We have faith for other things. For example, some of the wrong reasons. Let's go back to Biff and Mabel. Are you in faith? Well, they're more in love. Or they'll say they were meant for each other. They say it feels right, or he finishes my sentences, etc., etc. And all these things do not necessarily have to be bad, but we have to stay out of those pitfalls. Those things cannot be at the top of their decision-making list. When all the secondary and tertiary reasons fade, they want one thing to stand tall: their belief that God was leading them to marry. They were in faith to proceed. I have titled this Helpful Tips on How to Make Decisions, Big and Small. Let me ask a few questions and then we'll wrap up. Number 1, how do you describe your decision making? Generally speaking, impulsive, paralysis, anxious, confident, humble, etc. And then what does your answer reveal about your relationship with God? Number 2, when did you make a wrong-headed decision? What was wrong about it? How did it play out? And then how did God use a bad decision to bring about good? That would be a wonderful conversation to have with a friend or a group of friends about God's goodness, even when we made a bad decision. Number 3, have you ever made a decision only to realize later that you needed to make a change? How did that go? And then finally, number 4, do you live in regret for some of your past decisions? If you do, why do you? What does ongoing regret reveal about your relationship with God and His sovereignty? There's a few questions that you can ask to really work out what I've been sharing with you. If you do Life Over Coffee with a friend, you can add to this question list and have some wonderful conversations for transformation. Helpful tips on how to make decisions big and small. Just one final appeal. If any of you could help us financially, will you do it? A local church, an individual, couple. If you could help us to continue to produce these resources, we want to keep them free. We want to continue to give them away. And so if you're able to help us that way, I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Thanks for joining us. Learn more and get access to other resources at lifeovercoffee.com.